What's up, guys, and welcome back to MoAn Inc. If you guys are new here, then hello. My name is Erica, and it is a pleasure to have you joining me today on the channel. Because for today's video, as you can see from the title, we are going to be chatting and discussing everything involving the new Greek mythology magazine that has just hit the scene, which is called Sing O Muse. Now, before we can get into that and I can show you some of the glorious pages from this magazine, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you know every single time I post in the future. And now that you have so kindly done that, let's get into the video. So, the Sing O Muse magazine, as you guys can see, is adorable in size, and it's more so the style combining comic book and magazine. And this particular edition goes into the illustrations that depict the Homeric hymns. So before we can even get into the magazine and I can show you a lot of the fun illustrations, which I have been given permission to do, I should probably just explain what the Homeric hymns are, because then when we talk about this, it's going to make a lot more sense. The Homeric hymns are a collection of 33 ancient Greek poems. Now, they do date to around the 7th century BC or the 6th century BC. We will get to the authorship in 1 second, because there are 33 of these poems, but not all of them are in their full, expanse. Am I making this more dramatic than it has to be? Absolutely. What I'm trying to say is that not all of them are full, right? So a lot of them come to us in just random lines, and even the ones that we do have that are in full are not necessarily without interruption and disruptions, shall we say. So some poems are about 3 lines, other poems are so full that they're about 500 lines, and it's sort of this weird amalgamation of here are odd lines here, here's a full poem here. This is the collection of poems where we actually get the story of Persephone in the hymn to Demeter. So when she is taken from being in the field in Sicily and she's dragged down to the underworld, this is from the Homeric hymns. It is not from, like many people seem to think in my comment section, not from Homer with regards to the Iliad or the Odyssey. That is not where it pops up. It pops up in this collection of hymns or poems, whatever it is that we want to call them. All of these hymns are addressed to the gods. So the structure of it is hymn to, and then insert whatever god. So hymn to Demeter is the one about Persephone, but we do have hymns to a number of them, and some do repeat. So we do get some that are sort of like part 1 and part 2. But when it comes to the authorship of the Homeric hymns, this is where it gets tricky. The reason is because all of the poems are in an epic style. So they do match Homeric writing. So if you think of the Iliad and the Odyssey and the way that those things are phrased and the way that those things are written, poems. Can't believe I just called them things. So when it comes to that style, that's how the Homeric hymns are presented. They are very epic and they have that same meter. However, we don't really know who wrote them. And in fact, classicists and scholars do sort of agree. I say sort of agree, not because this is controversial, but because it is still hotly debated. But we do mostly agree that these poems are written by a selection of authors, but because they are in the Homeric style, that is why we just call them the Homeric hymns, because it is just easier, because no one signed their names, unfortunately, at the end of these poems, such as the ancient world. We do think that Homer might have contributed to it just based on the style. However, there are other poets, like there's a famous one from Chios, who is also attributed to the hymn to Apollo, and we do have the hymn to Demeter, which is the famous Persephone one, that is actually attributed not to Homer, not to, oh god, what is his name? Kinathus? I can never say his name, but I know exactly how it's spelled. It's on the screen, so you guys can check it. So that's the one who's attributed to the hymn to Apollo. The hymn to Demeter is actually from a poet called Pamphos, if I'm not mistaken. And those all do date to very, very early, right? So we are thinking the 7th and 6th century BC. However, there are other hymns, much like the hymn to Ares, which is no doubt Hellenistic in its style and in its wording, and therefore we actually attribute that to probably being written by a Roman poet, though we don't know who. So that's just kind of a very basic rundown of the Homeric Hymns. Again, like every other context episode that I upload onto this channel, very, very tricky to say anything regarding context and the ancient world when these poets and these artists and these people were not writing biographies. You know, the people who wrote these original hymns were not signing them, dating them in the same way that we might now. That was not really the same thing in the ancient world, and certainly not the same thing when it comes to those things that survive to us, which is annoying. However, the purpose of the Sing O Muse magazine, will it stand? Will it stand? Yes, it stands. The purpose of the magazine is to... Aww, that's so sad. The purpose of the Sing O Muse magazine is actually not to illustrate all 33 of the Homeric hymns, because that would have been like a whole book and a whole study. But instead, they illustrate 16 of the Homeric hymns in order to kind of show these hymns in a different way, in order to illustrate and give you guys a very basic image of what to picture, of what to take away from the hymns themselves. So it's kind of like a nice way of summarizing and a nice way of depicting them in a piece of art or in a collection of different works. It depends on how each artist kind of goes into it. But the idea is to kind of give a snapshot, ooh, that was a good word, into these Homeric hymns, and in only to 16 of them. So I will read you guys the 16 that are depicted in the magazine. We have the hymn to Demeter, the hymn to Delian Apollo, hymn to Hermes, to Aphrodite, to Dionysus, to Ares, to Hera, to the mother of the gods, to Heracles, to Hephaestus, to Poseidon, to the son of Kronos Most High, to Artemis, to Athena, to Hestia, and to Selene, or Selene. It really depends on how you pronounce that. I have always said Selene, and then the more classicist I hang around, the more I realize that we are divided on the pronunciation of this. So go with whichever one you want to, but that is the last hymn that has been depicted in the magazine. Now, when it comes to how this came about, why this came about, Sing O Muse was started by Michael, who is an artist and visual arts educator from New England. He himself is not a classicist, he is just a Greek mythology enthusiast, and so he managed to rope in a number of other artists as well from within our little corner of the industry. So artists who I've also featured on the channel who you guys would be familiar with include Flero Illustrations, Laura of Greek Myth Comics, and Tyler Miles Lockett. Tyler does more so an introduction here in the magazine, whereas Flora does the hymn to the Mother of the Gods, and Laura does the hymn to Hermes. So very different styles, very different ways of depicting these myths, and different purposes when it comes to the illustrations. Now, what I think is also really great about this is that there are so many artists that I didn't know about that were kind of lurking on various other corners of the internet that have been roped in to doing such incredible, beautiful work for this magazine. And there is one in particular that I wanted to shout out, only because, okay, I have to go on a little bit of a tangent. Just bear with for like 1 second. When it comes to social media, specifically when it comes to Twitter and Instagram, I'm not incredibly popular on those platforms. I've got a few thousand followers. So in general, I see everything, right? If I get mentioned, if I get tagged, I will be there and I'll kind of be lurking and I'll at least like it, right? To acknowledge that I've seen it. However, there are some times when my friends see a lot of things and they tag me in a lot of things on those days, competitions, new illustrations, whatever it happens to be. So there are days where I just miss things. And in particular, and this is very important, I mute my social media apps. Is that a good thing to do when you work on social media? Probably not, but I don't like being bothered in the middle of the day, especially when I'm reading or doing research and my phone's like ping, 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 this person commented, this person, I don't want to see it. I sound like such a grandma. But all of this is to say, there was an incredible artist that has been featured in this magazine who, when I went onto their page and I started looking at all of their stuff, I realized that they had mentioned me in so many tweets, and they must have just done it on these days where I have opened up my Twitter or I have opened up my Instagram, and it was all of my friends spamming me with like, here's a cute dog, or here's a this, or here's a that, whatever it is. You should see this. Look at this dramatic post. I don't know, but I missed out a lot of this artist's work. And when I went onto their profile, they have the most insane style. Like, I am just obsessed with them now. So I'm going to be showing you guys their work from Sing O Muse. because the artist is Jacob P. King, who did a stunning illustration of the hymn to Heracles that features Hebe and Heracles. And I think it is just absolutely beautiful. You guys should definitely go and check their work out, because is this gonna stand again? Looks like it will this time. Okay, you guys should definitely go and check out Jacob's work. He does some incredible stuff outside of this magazine as well, obviously with all of these artists, but I did just want to give a little highlight to Jacob because he has tried his best to get my attention. And for some reason, I have just consistently missed him. I am sorry. But another shout out that I wanted to do with this incredible magazine is actually the hymn to Hephaestus. Where are you? Ah, here it is. Oh my goodness. Take a look at this incredible illustration of Hephaestus in front of a volcano at his forge. I mean, this blew my teeny tiny brain. I also wanted to give a shout out to the Delian Apollo illustration. The intricacy of this one is so mesmerizing. I mean, every single detail. It seems like every time I look at it, something new pops out at me. I just think it's so stunning. So that's essentially what the magazine is. It's just a great way of engaging people with these texts, with these ancient Greek poems or ancient Greek myths that are so important to our understanding of the overall picture of mythology that goes into the ancient world. So I would highly recommend that you guys get your own copy. I mean, this thing is so cute and so adorable. And at the end, they even do a little sort of rundown of all of the artists as well. So you guys can go and find them on social media. But of course, I will be linking everybody in the description below. Not only the artist, but also the links to the Sing O Muse magazine if you guys want to order it yourself. And all of my long-form conversations with the artists that I have featured here on MoAn, because hearing about the way that they've gotten into their art, that they found their style, and all of that stuff, just, I mean, I love listening to it, so I presumed that everybody else would. So you guys can find those links in the description below. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll be seeing you for more videos here in the future. I'll see you guys then.